The market square was buzzing with life that morning. Vendors shouting, women balancing baskets on their heads, and children running barefoot through the dust. Yet, in the middle of the chaos, a hush suddenly fell over the crowd. A woman, Amma, stood with trembling hands, clutching a small pouch of coins. At her side, her daughter Abena, no older than 12, looked up at her with innocent, questioning eyes. Then, before anyone could fully understand, Amma pushed the girl forward into the arms of a stranger, a wealthy man from another town. The crowd gasped. Whispers rose like a storm. She sold her own blood, one woman hissed. For what? For money? The villagers watched in stunned disbelief, their faces twisted in anger and sorrow. And as the girl was dragged away, Abena cried out, not understanding, not believing that her mother's hands had just let her go. Before we dive into how this shocking moment came to be, take a second to hit that subscribe button and let us know in the comments. Where in the world are you watching this from? Your support helps us share more powerful African stories like this one. Now, let's go back to the beginning, to the struggles, the hunger, and the choices that led Amma to that fateful day. Amma had not always been the kind of woman people whispered about. In fact, in her younger years, she was admired for her beauty, her laughter, and her hardworking spirit. She lived in a small mud brick house at the edge of the village with her husband, Kojo, and their only daughter, Abena. But life had dealt her cruel hands. When Abena was just 6 years old, Kojo fell sick. What started as a simple fever grew worse each day. Amma tried herbs, prayers, and even borrowed money for hospital visits, but nothing could save him. One night, with rain pounding on the tin roof, Kojo took his last breath, leaving Amma widowed and drowning in debt. From that moment, survival became her only focus. She toiled in the fields from dawn until dusk, carrying firewood on her head, fetching water miles away, and taking small jobs in nearby towns. But no matter how hard she worked, the money was never enough. Food became scarce. Sometimes Abena went to bed with only water in her stomach, her little body curling from hunger pains. Still, Amma loved her daughter fiercely. Each morning before leaving for work, she would touch Abena's cheek and whisper, "One day, things will be better, my child. One day you will go to school and your future will be brighter than mine." But the debts grew heavier. The creditors came knocking, their voices rough, their threats sharp. Amma could feel the walls closing in. And then the wealthy trader arrived in the village. He carried with him promises wrapped in gold and temptation dressed as hope. And Amma, already broken by hunger and fear, found herself standing at a dangerous crossroad. The wealthy trader's name was Mensa. He was known across villages for his fat cows, his fleet of lorries, and the jingling coins that followed wherever he walked. Children stared in awe when he passed by, women adjusted their wrappers and smiled politely, and men lowered their voices in respect or in fear. Amma first met him one market day. She was selling ground nuts under the scorching sun when Mensa's shadow fell across her stall. He leaned down, his eyes narrowing as they landed on little Abena, who sat quietly beside her mother. "You struggle too much, Amma," he said smoothly, his voice dripping like palm wine. "What if I told you I could take that burden off your shoulders? I can give you enough money to pay off every debt you owe." Amma frowned, and in return, Mensa's smile was cold. He pointed at Abena. "That girl, she deserves a better life, and I can give it to her. Clothes, food, a roof, education. All you must do is let her come with me." Amma's heart nearly stopped. Her daughter, the only blood she had left in this world, the idea pierced her like a spear. "No," she whispered, clutching Abena's hand tightly. "She is all I have." But Mensa did not walk away. He returned again the next day, and the day after. Each time his offer grew larger. Bags of rice, rolls of cloth, and piles of money enough to build a new house. And as Amma lay awake at night, listening to Abena's empty stomach growl, her mind began to wobble between desperation and love. The village debts, the hunger, the shame, they pressed down heavier each day. And so one evening, as the sun sank in red flames across the horizon, Amma whispered to herself words she thought she would never say. Maybe this is the only way to save us both." The night Amma made her decision, the village was quiet. Crickets sang in the grass, goats shuffled in their pens, and the moon shone full and heavy, as if it too was watching her. Amma sat on the bamboo mat, staring at Abena, who was fast asleep. The child's small hand clutched a ragged doll made from old cloth. Her breathing was soft and innocent, unaware of the storm her mother wrestled with. Amma pressed her palms against her face and wept. She whispered, "God forgive me, but I have no choice."
I cannot watch her die of hunger in my arms. The following morning, Mensa arrived with his entourage, 2 men carrying sacks of goods and a leather bag filled with money. The villagers gathered quickly, sensing something unusual. Eyes peered from doorways, whispers slithered through the air. Is Alma finally selling her child? One woman murmured. She must be desperate, another added, shaking her head. Ei, may the gods punish greed, an old man muttered. Alma stood trembling as Mensa approached. He smiled, his gold tooth glinting in the sun, and placed the bag of money at her feet. Take it, he said. And let me take the girl. Abena, confused, clung to her mother's wrapper. Mama, where are they taking me? She asked in her soft, innocent voice. Alma's knees weakened. Her heart screamed to pull her daughter close and run far, far away. But the weight of her debts, the hunger, the shame, all of it, pressed against her like a wall she could not climb. With tears streaming down her cheeks, Alma bent low, kissed Abena's forehead, and pushed her gently toward Mensa. The crowd gasped in shock. Women covered their mouths, men shook their heads. Children stared, wide-eyed, unable to understand. And as Mensa's men led Abena away, her small voice pierced the air like a knife, Mama! Don't let them take me. But Alma stood frozen, her tears falling into the dust, while the village watched in silence, some with pity, others with disgust. The days that followed were heavy with whispers. Every corner of the village echoed with Alma's name, but never kindly. She sold her own flesh and blood, the market women gossiped as they pounded fufu. Such a heartless woman, muttered the elders under the baobab tree. May the ancestors never forgive her, another spat into the dust. Wherever Alma went, eyes burned into her back. No one greeted her. Children pointed and ran, repeating what their parents had said, which? Wicked mother. Alma pretended not to hear, but inside she was dying. The bag of money lay untouched in her hut. She had thought it would bring relief, but instead, it weighed on her like a curse. Every time she opened it, the smell of the leather seemed to choke her with guilt. At night, she lay awake, hearing Abena's cries echo in her ears, Mama! Don't let them take me. She covered her ears, but it made no difference. The memory was branded into her soul. Meanwhile, in Mensa's compound, Abena's life had changed drastically. At first, Mensa spoiled her with fine dresses and sweet bread, trying to make her smile. But as the days turned into weeks, his true nature revealed itself. He barked orders, expecting her to fetch water, sweep, and cook like a servant. When she hesitated, his temper flared. You are mine now, he growled one evening. Your mother gave you away for money. Never forget that. Abena's small body trembled, but her spirit did not break. Each night, she whispered to herself, Mama still loves me. She only did this because she was suffering. One day, I'll go home. But back in the village, Alma wondered if she would ever see her daughter again, or if the gods would ever forgive her for the choice she had made. And then came the day when the consequences of her decision began to unfold in ways no one in the village could have imagined. One hot afternoon, the village square gathered in a frenzy. The chief's gong beater had called for an urgent meeting. Drums echoed, summoning everyone, men, women, and children. Alma, trembling, wrapped her faded cloth tighter and went, though she dreaded the stairs. The chief stood tall, his staff of authority glistening in the sun. Beside him were 2 strangers, well-dressed officials from the city. Their car, shining and strange, had drawn gasps from the villagers. The taller official spoke, We come with grave news. Mensa, the wealthy man you all know, is under investigation for human trafficking. We have evidence he has been buying children from poor families and selling them across the border. Gasps erupted. Mothers clutched their children tightly. Men shook their heads in disbelief. All eyes turned toward Alma, piercing her like knives. The chief's voice boomed, "Where is Abena, the child taken into Mensa's household?" Alma's knees nearly gave way. The truth, which she had tried to bury, was now dragging her into the open. She wanted to run, but her legs refused. Tears spilled down her cheeks. I gave her to him," she confessed in a broken voice. I thought she would live better with him. He gave me money, but my heart has never known peace since." A chilling silence swept the crowd. The officials nodded gravely. "Then your daughter may be in danger. We must find her before it is too late." The villagers gasped again, this time not with scorn, but with shock and fear. Alma fell to the ground, wailing, "Abena! My child! What have I done?" The chief raised his staff. "Gather the strongest men. Mensa's deceit has cursed our land. We cannot stand by while our children are stolen." And so, what began as Alma's personal shame now exploded into a battle for justice, one that would test the entire village's unity, and determine whether Abena's fate could still be changed. That same evening, as the sun dipped behind the palm trees, the village men gathered with lanterns, machetes, and drums of courage. The officials from the city led the way, but the determination in the villagers' eyes showed that this was no longer just about Alma's mistake, it was about every child's safety. Alma followed them at a distance, barefoot, her wrapper torn from the rush. Every step she took was a prayer whispered into the wind. "God, let me find my daughter alive, let me see Abena again." The trail to Mensa's compound was long and dusty. The wealthy man's mansion, standing at the edge of the village, loomed like a dark fortress. Its tall gate glistened with fresh paint, mocking the poverty of those around it. The officials signaled for silence as they approached. Strange voices floated out from inside, men talking hurriedly, doors banging, and the sound of a car engine revving. Mensa was preparing to escape. Suddenly, bang! The gates burst open, and Mensa's guards poured out, wielding sticks and machetes. Chaos erupted. The villagers clashed with them fiercely, their cries echoing through the night. Women in the distance wailed, pounding their chests, while children clung to their mothers in fear. In the midst of the commotion, Alma's eyes caught a small figure at one of the upstairs windows. Her heart leapt, it was Abena. The child's frightened face pressed against the glass, tears streaking down her cheeks. "Abena!" Alma screamed, her voice piercing the fight. The little girl's muffled cry came back, "Mama!" The sound cut through the battle like a blade. The villagers fought harder, driven by the sight of the innocent child trapped inside. The officials barked orders, pushing toward the house. But Mensa himself appeared at the doorway, his gold chain glinting under the lantern light. His smile was cold, defiant. "You fools," he shouted. "Do you think you can take back what you've already sold? This child belongs to me now." His words stabbed Alma's heart, but they also ignited something in her. For the first time in years, she rose from her knees, her eyes blazing. "No," she cried. "She is mine, and no amount of your cursed money will change that." The battle for Abena had truly begun. The officials forced their way into Mensa's mansion, their boots pounding against the tiled floor. The villagers surged behind them, their fury like a storm. Inside, the air was heavy with incense and the sour smell of fear. Alma stumbled in after them, her chest heaving, eyes darting everywhere for Abena. She could still hear her daughter's cries upstairs. "Hold the stairs!" Mensa barked, shoving his guards forward. They blocked the way with sticks and knives, but the villagers fought like lions, unwilling to retreat. Pots were smashed, furniture overturned, blood mixed with sweat as the clash shook the mansion. Alma pushed through the chaos, her body bruised and scratched, but her mind focused on only one thing: reach Abena. She scrambled up the stairs, ignoring the shouts behind her. As she reached the landing, Mensa appeared again, this time with a pistol in his hand. The metallic click echoed like thunder. "Another step, and I'll shoot," he roared, pointing the gun straight at her. Alma froze. Her breath caught, and her knees trembled. The villagers below gasped, their fight momentarily stalling. But then, a tiny voice cut through the silence. "Mama, don't stop. I'm here." Abena sobbed, her hand slamming against the locked door of the room. Something inside Alma broke. She took a trembling step forward. Her voice cracked, but it carried the weight of a mother's soul. "Mensa, you can kill me, but you will never keep my child. If this is my punishment for being foolish and greedy, so be it, but I will not die a coward." Mensa sneered, his finger tightening on the trigger. But before he could fire, one of the villagers hurled a stone from below. It struck his wrist, and the gun flew from his hand, clattering across the floor. The crowd roared. Alma didn't hesitate, she dashed past him, slammed her fists against the locked door, and cried out, "Abena, hold on." Inside, her daughter's voice rose like a song of hope. "Mama." The battle outside was fierce, but in that upstairs hallway, time slowed. A mother and daughter were just heartbeats away from reunion. Alma's fists pounded the wooden door until her knuckles bled. "Abena. Step back, my child. Mama is here," she cried, her voice raw with desperation. Behind her, the villagers surged up the stairs, overpowering Mensa's guards one by one. Mensa scrambled for his fallen pistol, but strong hands from the crowd pinned him to the floor. The mighty man of wealth was now reduced to a writhing captive. With a final kick, Alma smashed the lock. The door swung open violently, and what she saw inside nearly stopped her heart. Abena was tied to a chair, her tiny wrists bound with thick rope. Around her were bags of strange herbs, ritual masks, and chalk markings smeared across the floor. A large clay pot filled with dark liquid bubbled in the corner, its foul stench filling the room. It was no ordinary kidnapping. Mensa had planned something far darker. The villagers gasped in horror as they crowded behind Alma. Whispers spread like fire. Sacrifice, he was going to sacrifice the child. Abena's eyes, wet with tears, lit up when she saw her mother. "Mama," she wailed. Alma rushed forward, tearing the ropes with her bare hands, her fingers trembling but unrelenting. She pulled Abena into her arms, clutching her tightly as though letting go would mean losing her forever. "Never again, my child. Never again will I let anyone take you from me," Alma whispered, her tears soaking into Abena's hair. Downstairs, the villagers dragged Mensa, beaten and bound, into the courtyard. His cries for mercy fell on deaf ears. The once feared man was nothing more than a disgrace in the eyes of the community. But while justice was being delivered outside, Alma held her daughter close in the darkened room, realizing the depth of her betrayal. The gold she once chased had almost cost her the only treasure that truly mattered, her child. The courtyard of Mensa's mansion was now filled with angry villagers, their torches blazing against the night sky. Mensa lay tied up, his fine clothes torn, his face swollen from the beating. The same people who once envied him now spat at him, calling him a coward and a devil. But as the cries for punishment rose, another voice cut through the crowd. An elder, his back bent with age but his voice sharp as steel, lifted his hand. "Mensa is guilty. Yes. But let us not forget," his gaze swept slowly through the villagers before landing firmly on Alma. "This child was not stolen. She was sold." The crowd turned in stunned silence. All eyes fell on Alma, still clutching Abena in her arms. The sting of truth pierced deeper than any blade. Alma's lips trembled. I thought I was saving us. I thought money would change our lives. I was blind. The elder's voice thundered. A mother's greed nearly fed her daughter to the darkness. Gold cannot raise a child. Love and sacrifice do. The crowd murmured in agreement. Some spat at Alma's feet, others shook their heads in bitter disappointment. The shame pressed on her like a crushing weight. For a moment, she feared they might tear her apart as they had Mensa. But then little Abena, still wrapped in her arms, lifted her tiny voice. Please, don't be angry with Mama. She came for me. She fought for me. She saved me. The crowd quieted. A child's plea had silenced their fury. Tears streamed down Alma's face as she knelt in the dust before her people. I have sinned against my daughter and against you all. But today, I swear before the heavens, never again will I put gold above her life. From now on, I live only for her, for family, and for truth. The elder studied her for a long, heavy moment. Then he nodded. Let her carry her shame as a lesson to us all. For wealth fades like smoke, but love endures. That night, Mensa was dragged away to face justice, but Alma and Abena returned to their humble hut. They had no gold, no wealth, no riches, only each other. And as Alma held her daughter close, she finally understood the priceless treasure she almost lost. The village, too, never forgot. Mothers told their daughters, and fathers warned their sons. The woman who sold her child learned that gold is dust, but love is life. What happened in the end left the entire village shaken, and Alma's name became both a warning and a lesson for generations to come.